All right. Hello and welcome to Cisco Live. I'm Max Alvarado and I'll be your host in this session. So what we have today is how to seamlessly automate NXOS, ACI, and cloud networks through Nexus. Kind of ambitious, right? But the idea for this session is I have two announcements to make. The first one is if you are expecting some kind of PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to have to disappoint you because I have some use cases that I want to show you. 4 use cases, by the way. And the second one is that the technical level for this session is introductory. So if you want to go deeper in configuration and more use cases and things like that, just feel free to reach to me. I'm being available all the week. In the Meet the Engineer sessions, we also have a YouTube channel for the videos that you will see. I'll be posting those over there. And there's also something that you have to take into consideration that is with the new Cisco Live format, I'm pretty sure you already know this, we are not having questions during the session. So please join the discussion at the WebEx app through the Cisco events. And I have a lot of peers actually waiting for your questions and comments to start working. And I'll join them as soon as we finish this presentation. So please feel free to make any comment or question over there. And well, let's start with this. The agenda that I have for today is pretty much based in 4 use cases. The first part, I have 2 parts for the presentation. The first part will be talking about NXOS for LAN and SAN deployments. I think this is important because if we want to go to a hybrid cloud world, we have to first have some automation level at the on-prem scenarios that we already have. And that is going to allow us to go easier to the hybrid cloud scenarios. And then for the second part, I'll have 3 use cases for a multi-site deployment. So this is pretty much what we'll be covering today in 45 minutes, right? So let's start with it. And the first thing that I want to say is, when we talk about data center today, we are not talking about just one specific place, right? We are not talking just an on-prem information. We also might have some public cloud information, co-location data centers, as a service platform. So information is pretty much everywhere. And if we talk about the future with this new normal that we actually have, the thing is that is growing the way how we have information in different locations. And the thing is that we need to find a way to make that information to talk with each other in order to make sense, to be secure, to be available, and to be there when we need to ask for some information we need to present to our customers. So here comes the challenge. If we have this hybrid cloud networking scenario, we are going to have challenge since we are trying to connect the information in a secure way to the troubleshooting, all the way how we can manage the network communication for those places. If we want to make the connectivity and management, there's some consideration that we have to make in the on-prem scenario, and actually when we go from on-prem to public cloud, it's different, but actually we have to take those considerations. When we want to make troubleshooting, even monitoring, there's a lot of things that we have to integrate in order to be able to see the whole picture, right, for the communication that we have on the networks. So here's where tools like Nexus Dashboard is going to help us to improve how we can centralize the information to have the whole visibility for the platform and start making decisions based on data. Right? Data and feelings, right? So for those who are not really familiar with what Nexus Dashboard can do today, let's think of Nexus Dashboard as this single pane of glass that I have where I can enable different services or applications that allows me to deploy different functionalities. In this case, for today, I'll be using 2 of those services. I'll go there in a couple seconds. But something that actually you have to take into consideration is that I'll be using the physical and virtual environments that we have for the Nexus Dashboard cluster. This is important to mention because, as you will see, we'll have some interesting announcements during the event for a platform that we call Nexus Cloud. So stay tuned on your sessions because this is something that will be interesting for you to know. And something else. Nexus Dashboard, some people think that Nexus Dashboard is only for ACI or SDN platforms, and that is not true. We can also have some multi-fabric support. We can have ACI, we can have NXOS, we can have public clouds. So the scenario that actually we can cover through Nexus Dashboard is really huge. So we're gonna start working with these scenarios. For these demos, I installed some platform and I deployed 3 different clusters for Nexus Dashboard. I have a cluster that is actually using Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator. I have another cluster that will be using Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller for the LAN scenario. And I have another cluster that will be using Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller for the SAN scenario. This is the way how I deploy it, but it's not the only way to have this platform up and running. And it's important for you to know that we at Cisco and your partners have some tools that actually allow us to make the right sizing for the platform that you might need either for a proof of concept or your production environment. So this is just one way to make the platform work. Something else that I like to mention is that we have some feature that I'm not gonna go deeper into that is we call federation, that allow us to centralize the management of the 3 clusters just as a single pane of glass. But we can go deeper later for that. So, our topology. This is kind of interesting because I'll have, for today's use cases, a couple sites with an on-prem ACI platform that is actually San Jose and Miami. I also have a platform in Sydney, Australia, that I'll be using for NXOS, for LAN and SAN deployments. I have a platform in AWS deployed in Tokyo, and a platform for Azure in London. I'll be using all these platforms for the use cases that we'll be working today. I'll start with the first use case that is associated to NXOS, and this is where I want to be able to enable the platform that most of the time we have to manage through CLI, that most of our customers are still today using CLI to manage this. And just take something into consideration. Life is too short for CLI, right? So the idea for this use case is for you to know that actually we have a tool that is gonna allow you to have a lot of visibility, and you can automate the functions that we can deploy on the platform. So let's start with this use case. I'll be using the Fabric Controller, that is actually the service that allows me to manage the NXOS platform. I'll show you how I go to the Nexus dashboard and enable the service. And I'll be using the platform that we have in Australia, right? So get ready with your passport, we're getting there. This is the first use case that I'll cover, and we'll start like this. First, we have to open the service at Nexus Dashboard. This is the first step. And then I have different options to enable the service. I'll have the SAN controller for SAN, and I'll have 2 options for the LAN scenario, right? SAN controller, and I have 2 options. If I go to LAN with Fabric Discovery, this is pretty much for monitoring purposes, but if I go with Fabric Controller, I'll be able to configure more advanced features. That is the one that I'll be using. And then we'll need to add a fabric in both scenarios. I'm gonna start with the LAN cluster for the demonstration. So, first thing we have to do is create a name for the fabric and choose the template. This is important. Look at all the templates that I can use, and I'll be using the Easy Fabric template that allow me to make configuration like VXLAN. So I can start deploying advanced features for this platform just by using this template, right? So we're gonna start with a template. And now I'm gonna add just a single parameter with BGP. Actually, we can go deeper after that. And now I like to add the switches that I have in Australia, right? Then I have to add just 1 switch, and based on the user and password that I'll be using, I'll be able to get all the switches that I have located over there. Just 1 switch, username and password with the rights to have all configurations, and then I'll start making the discovery for the switches. This is a brownfield, by the way. It's important to mention. So look at all the switches that I have in Australia, and now I'm in the process to get all the information from events, alerts, configuration, everything that we have in those switches, right? Just like this. As soon as we get all the switches added, I'll be able to see that we have different serial numbers, config status, fabric names, roles, and actually if I go to the dashboard, look at the fabric health, even analytics, switches configuration, and a lot of information that actually came from the switches. I just added. And since the first time I start looking for the information. Now we are at the topology part, and we're able to see how all the switches are connected with each other, right? I have a couple spines, some leaves, a border gateway, and I can start seeing the details, for example, in the links. I'm gonna click in one of the links, and you are able to see the interfaces the link capacity and the status for that link. Visibility and troubleshooting, something that I can start from here. And then, by choosing the switches, I have the summary information for every switch. And if I want to go in a deeper detail, I just have to click in the upper right, in this arrow that I have over here, and I have more detail for that switch and all the things that I can monitor and configure for that switch, right? We're coming from interfaces, interface group, BRFs, so there's a lot of things that I can configure just being there, right? But if I want to make this in a higher level, not only at the switch level, I just have to go to this switch and click on configuration, and now I'm able to start making configuration at the network level. So this is important because you saw what I just did in 3 minutes, right? I just added the switches and started looking for some information. It's pretty much the same if I go to the SAN scenario. In the SAN scenario, I'm gonna create a fabric. In this case, I'm creating the vSAN 101, and I'll be mapping this vSAN with the same vSAN that actually is running in the platform. And this is something interesting to use. If you have UCS, and you add those credentials, we will be able to see the SAN configuration that you have in your fabric interconnects, right? So this is something that will show. I'm adding the second fabric that we have over there. We already have 2 fabrics. Don't worry for this. It's taking just some time to refresh, but we are licensed, no problem. And now we can see all the platform that is aligned with those fabrics that we're actually including. Something important, we have fabric interconnects, leaves, the MDSs, and now, as we saw before, I can see the summary for the MDS in this case, and I can click to go to the detail, to the things that I can configure, visualize, monitor, and troubleshoot in the platform, right? Here's the detail. Here are all the options that I can work with. But also, there's something else I can do. I come into links, I can see the source and destination, and I can click in the fabric. If I want to make configuration at the fabric level, I just click in the fabric, and here are all the options that I can work with. It's very simple, and we are working from the topology part. You don't have to go to a lot of tabs, and I'm moving from one place to another. It's really easy to manage. Now, this is something that we'll be using through the topology. We are going to choose one of the fabric, and I want you to see the level of detail that we can have in this part. I'm going to click on the leaf to 221 and look at the endpoints that I have attached to the leaf. This is not an MDS, and I can see the information that actually is working with that platform. But I can go to that vSAN, and I can click on the detail for the vSANs that are actually attached to this platform. In this case, we are going to a fabric interconnect A. We can go to the zones that are actually mapped there. I can choose one of the zones, and look how deep I can go in the details for the platform. Now I can see all the components that are attached to this zone, and I can start working from there, right? There's a lot of changes I can do. Zoning, this is important in a SAN scenario, right? So we can go to the zoning part over here. We got already a couple a sound set over here. I'm gonna click it, and I can see all the details and actually edit the zoning that I have in here. Also, I can click on the detail, and I can see the zones that I have. I'm going to choose one and see the members that are part of that zone. And I can start making changes from them. So there's a lot of things that I can do from here, and something that I really like, if you want to have some end user information, right, some endpoints, we can go and add some virtual infrastructure. I just added the vCenter, as you can see. And now I'm going to the dashboard. I'm going to click in the hosts. I'll see all the hosts that I have, and I can click on the VMware host, and you'll be able to see the host that is actually running on UCS, connect to an MDS, and attach to some storage in the platform, right? So this is the kind of things that we can do just enabling the Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller service in Nexus Dashboard. As I said before, remember when we have to do this on CLI, and now we can compare the things that we can do over here, right? And this is one of the things that I think is important to do when we have been managing networks for a very long time, and when we see the future that is really hybrid, and we have to get there. So I think this use case might be useful for you guys. If you want to go deeper, just let me know, and after the session, I can show you some more things about it. So this was the first scenario that I showed you, and now As soon as we get there, we will be able to include our NXOS platform to the hybrid cloud world, right? But in this case, I'll be going to ACI. I got some love for NXOS, but we have to give some love to ACI also, right? So the thing here is that the first scenario that we might have, and that we might like to automate, is the on-prem to on-prem automation. And for this, I'll be using the Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator feature. I just have to enable that feature, and I'll be able to start working with it. For this demo, I'll be using my on-prem platforms that I have in San Jose and Miami. And this is the way how it works. Let me show you that. The first thing that I have to do is I'm going to run 3 processes over here. There's a small configuration that we have to do on Nexus Dashboard, and then we'll move to the orchestrator. The same 3 procedures that I'm going to run for this use case, I'll be doing for on-prem to cloud and cloud to cloud. So what I was trying to prepare for this session was a recipe that actually you will know that as soon as you leave this door, you'll remember me and say there's 3 steps that I have to follow if I want to enable this. I'll be posting these videos on YouTube soon, but by the way, this is kind of the information that I want to share. So at this point, the first thing that we have to do is I'm going to Nexus Dashboard, the single pane of glass, and I need to add the sites that I want to work with. In this case, it's an ACI site. As you can see, this is on-prem, cloud, and NXOS. A name, the link for the APIX, username and password, and I'm going to pin the location for Miami in this case. And that's it. Now, I'll move to San Jose and I'll do the same. Add a new site over there, and same things for San Jose. They are all on-prem. Name, host, name, IP, username, password, and pin the location. Is over here. So that's pretty much all that we have to do on Nexus Dashboard. Now I'll move to the Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator service. By the way, in the new releases and in 2.2.1e that actually is available today at cisco.com, you will see a kind of different icons and different names maybe for some of the screens, but it's pretty much the same functionality. So now we come to the orchestrator, and for connectivity, second process, I'm gonna follow 2 steps. The first one, I'm going to enable the orchestrator to manage those sites. And this is really simple. I just have to click in this part, the unmanaged, click it, choose manage, and that's it. I just have to wait for the green flag. Oh, a site ID, this is important. And then the green flag. The same for the San Jose. Click over there, choose managed, and add a site ID. 2 sites to be managed by orchestrator. Perfect. Now we have to move to the multi-site configuration. And now we're going to infra, and we are going to the configuration for Miami first, right? So we are here, and at this point, I just need to move the switch from left to right, and I'm going to have to configure 3 levels of communication. The first one will be for the place on ACI, and I'll have to add the overlay multicast step and the OSPF configuration that I have in the lower level. The second level will be for the pods that actually, as you can see in Miami, we have a multi-pod configuration, and I just have to add the unicast step that I need for communication on lower level. And then on the spine level, I just need to indicate the interface that I'm using in the spines to communicate with the spines that I have in San Jose, right? So this is the 3-level configuration that I have to do. Same in San Jose, but I just have a single pod in San Jose. But as soon as I have this, I'll have this nice green line between those sides that actually says everything is ready for communication. So now I have to go to the application part. And for the application part, there's 3 simple steps. The first one is defining the tenant, right? So I'm choosing one tenant, I'm defining one tenant, adding 2 sites, Miami and San Jose in this case, and a user that actually have rights to make configuration on the sites that I enabled, right? The second step will be configuring a schema. And the schema is just a collection of templates that I can deploy on my sites. So in this case, my schema will be production, and then I'll start adding the templates. And look at this. I can do ACI or I can do NXOS. So just remember, this is not only for ACI. In this case, I'll be doing ACI, but we can add also our NXOS platform. And now, defining the template, we are adding a new template, and we just have to add the configuration that we are used to make on ACI. Remember? BRF, application profile, EPGs, bridge domain. So we just have to add those components, and that enables the template that I'll be using in all of my ACI sites, depending on the site, right? So now I'm adding the sites, Miami and San Jose. I'm saying I'll be using this template, and we are almost ready. The only thing that I need to explain is I have the template ready, but I need to specify the domain where I'll be applying the template. In this case, I'll be using my virtual domain. So I'm adding my vCenter for this, and I'm going to the domain profile, add a domain, and I'll be adding my BMM domain for Miami and my BMN domain in San Jose. But I will also be adding some physical layer 2, layer 3 domains, so it's not restricted for virtual scenarios also. So, couple default parameters that we have over here. We have everything to be deployed immediately. We only have 45 minutes, right? So, as soon as I got this template, I already added for Miami, same for San Jose. We go to the EPG. We say that we are going to add this in the domain, the BMM for San Jose, and we're ready. That's it. We already configured this. So now, I just need to deploy this on the APIs that I have on the different places. It says, well, we are going to configure all of this in all these places, and I just need to deploy EPGs, bridge domain, BRF, everything. Waiting for the green flags. Just a couple seconds. Over there, successfully deployed. And now we are ready to see if this works, right? So the first thing I'm going to vCenter, and I just want to see this, right? My tenant, application profile, and EPG. Just for checking, everything got configured from the orchestrator to the APIs, right? Same for Miami. And I want to go to the APIs to see if actually the same thing happened on the ACI part. So as you can see, we have a little cloud over here that says we have a multi-site configuration in here. And if we go to the tenants, we will see the NDO tenant with my app application profile that actually says this object was created for Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator, and the EPG that we created on the template. Everything automatically inserted in the APIs that we have in Miami and San Jose, right? That was simple. But now, we want to check if this works, right? Because it was too easy to be true. So I have a couple VMs here. I have Web 02 and Web 03. And the first thing that I'll have to do is changing the network to the new network that I just inserted in the configurations, right? And for this scenario, I have a host in Miami with both VMs. I'm going to do this for Web 02, same for Web 03. Just changing the networks. There it is. And now, I'm going to open a couple of consoles, one for each VM, and I want to ping from one VM to the other. It's not funny because they're in the same host, right? So we are just pretty much, yeah, I saw you. And the idea is, this is the same that actually we do with regular ACI. So we have 110 for Web 02, and Web 03 will be, let me show you that, Web 03 will be 111. Right? So I can ping from one to the other, and this is not fair because they are in the same host, but now is where things should be working as expected, and we'll be moving Web 02 to San Jose, right? So I'm going to come to the VM, and I'm going to move this. Look, we are in Miami, so I'm going to right-click and make the migrate vMotion task. We're going to move to the host 77 that I have in San Jose. So as you can see, he's located in San Jose. Next, and look at this. We have the same network in both sites. So this is something that we automated with Orchestrator. So next, everything will be business as usual with VMware. And now we just have to wait for this VM to disappear from Miami and be on San Jose. Look at this. He's moving. Couple seconds. Well, disappear here. Go to San Jose. Remember, the host is 77, right? There it is, Web 02. And now I'd like to see the consoles that actually are making the connectivity between those sites. If I go to 03, everything is working. 02 dropped the console, so I have to enable that again because of the vMotion. And as soon as I started, I just lost one ping over here, but actually I'm pinging from one to the other, right? I just deployed the template. The orchestrator took that template and inserted in both APX clusters, one in Miami, one in San Jose, and now we can do vMotion as if they were in the same host. That was the first use case that I wanted to show. So, going to the next one, we would like to add a couple more complexity to the equation, right? So now, I'm gonna be using the same tenant, the same schema, and the same template that I just using for on-prem to on-prem, and I'd like to extend this to the cloud, to the public cloud, right? So let's go this. Remember the 3 steps that we mentioned? That was something that we'll be doing. And now we're gonna move from San Jose to Tokyo. I'm gonna start with AWS. So, first thing we have to do, remember, we have to go to Nexus dashboard, and we are gonna add a new site. But first, I want to make sure, this is important, that I can reach the IP address for my cloud APIC in AWS using my management network. This is important, right? As soon as I have this, I'm gonna add a new site. In this case, it's a cloud ACI, name, host name and IP address, username and password. I don't need to pin the location because by the region we are gonna know where it is, right? So just have to add the site, and that's it for Nexus dashboard. Now we are going to orchestrator, and remember, 2 procedures, one for connectivity, one for the application. So for the connectivity, we're gonna go to managed. We're gonna change from unmanaged to managed and add a site ID. This is the 3rd site that we're adding. Checked. Now we're going to enable the multi-site functionality. Let's go to infra, configure infra. And at this point, now we can see AWS in Tokyo. Now, I'm going to click on general settings, and I need to check that I have the addressing that I'll be using, this is important, to create the IPsec tunnels that I'll be using between the transit gateways that I have in AWS with a router that I have in San Jose. So, we already checked that, and I'm adding the device that I have physically in San Jose to configure those IPsec tunnels, right? So this is the name, and this is the IP address. And I'm adding Tokyo, and I'm telling this is the one that you'll be using to connect on San Jose. Now, moving the switch from left to right, and the underlying configuration, I have to tell Tokyo, you are connecting with San Jose. I might choose Miami, I might choose anything, but for this case, I'm using San Jose. And this is pretty much just adding the connectivity. So as soon as I deploy this, there's a flag, because I already told AWS how to get to San Jose, but I need to tell San Jose how to get to AWS. So I just need to go to San Jose and add the router that I just mapped in the APN network. That's it. So the first level, the connectivity part, is ready. Now I can deploy this. And we have the connectivity, but remember, it requires IPsec. So this is one of the nicest parts for me, right? The thing is that now I'm coming here in the 3rd option, I'm downloading the configuration of the IPsec tunnels. The scripts are automatically generated by the orchestrator. So I don't need to learn how to configure IPsec. And this session is being recorded, I'm so fired. But the thing is that I just have to open the script, and there's just one parameter that I need to change. I just need to change, and no problem if you cannot see the code, you don't need to learn this. I just need to change the name of the interface that I'm using in the routing in San Jose to reach the internet. That's it. Then I'll copy and paste this script in the router. So this is pretty much what I have to do. I'm copying this, I'm pasting this in the router, just change the interface name. And look at this, as soon as I see the tunnels that I created, look at this, we have a tunnel 1000, and we already have this tunnel that is the first one from the router to the first transit gateway. But we have 2 transit gateways, so pretty much the same with the second script, just changing the interface. We can see the tunnels in here, and everything will be configured, right? 2001, 1001, so we have 2 tunnels for the connectivity, and we're ready with the connectivity. Right? One place to another, tunnels, everything is ready, just following the scripts. Now we have to go to the application part, because we want to extend the tenant, right? So we're going to start doing this by the application. The first one, remember the tenant. So in this case, we are going to use the same. I just need to add AWS Tokyo and choose the account that we are using for the cloud APIC that we have in Tokyo. This is the account. This is the trusted, pretty much the same that we are using with the cloud APIC. Second step is the schema. All right, this is ready, checked. We're going to the schema, and we are going to make just a couple adjustments for here, production. We already configured everything for on-prem to on-prem, but now we have to add a couple cloud scenarios. So we are adding Tokyo and using the same template that we already have for the on-prem to on-prem scenario. And here, there's something that I need to add at the endpoint level. I'm going to choose the same BRF that we have for the on-prem to on-prem, but I need to add a selector. This will be a tag that I'll be using in the instances that we deploy in AWS to say, hey, this instance belongs to the EPG that is called web. And I'll be using web as the owner just to reference that this instance should be attached to that EPG, right? So we already have that. We are coming to the configuration for the BRF. And now I'm going to add the region where we have the AWS connectivity, in this case, Tokyo. Northeast 1, and the CIDR with the addressing that we'll be using to assign to the private network of the instances that we'll deploy in AWS. So we have a couple subnets that we'll be using for the availability zones, 172.16.100, 172.16.200, right? That's it. We'll be doing some hub networking by default. We have this network is actually something that we are getting from the cloud APIC that is already configured there, and the subnets that we'll be using for the addressing in the private part of the instances. And we're ready. Yes, now we have just to deploy, and that check for the template. Deploy the sites, we are going to make all these configurations in AWS, and now we have to check that things work, right? So, we're moving to Tokyo. Successfully deployed, VPC at the AWS, we're going to the VPCs, and now we have the BRF, NDO tenant BRF, and the network that actually we're using, and the subnets that we'll use for the instances. And now I'm going to create an instance on EC2, launch the instance, and just business as usual, right? This is the template. So here I'm going to choose the BRF that we defined that actually was installed by the orchestrator with the subnets that we need for the internal IP address. Then next, I'll add the tag that actually we defined to say this instance belongs to the EPG that we have in the template. Owner should be web. Next, next, next. And we are going to run the instance, and we need to see the private IP that was assigned to the instance, right? So, view instances. Just getting there. There you go. 172.16.200, 227. I'm going to keep that IP address over there, and going to Web 02 that is actually in San Jose, now I can reach that instance from San Jose to AWS and vice versa. And that was using the same template, the same schema, the same tenant, the same everything. I just needed to add the connectivity for the cloud, public cloud scenario, and add the IPsec configuration to the router that was actually using a couple templates. So, looks easy, right? Because now we're going to the easier part of all. We are going to add another cloud, public cloud scenario to the equation. So, the fourth use case will be the cloud-to-cloud connectivity and automation, right? So for this scenario, I have London, and we have Azure deployed in London. A cloud API is actually running there. And now we have to extend the network that we already have in San Jose, Miami, and Tokyo to London. So this is how it works. Remember the three procedures, right? The first one, we are going to have to go and add the site to the Nexus dashboard, just checking that the IP address is reachable by the management network. Adding the new site. In this case, Cloud ACI. We will go through Azure Europe, host name, username, and password. We are able to add some NXOS platform also, but we will have to deploy some different templates, but this is part of the advanced feature that we might talk later. And now we have Azure included, and we'll go to the service for orchestrator, right? Connectivity and application. For connectivity, just remember, managed. We just have to go and click on Azure, change to manage, and add the fourth place that I'll be using. Checked. Now going to the multi-site configuration. Clicking here, configure infra, and now we'll be saying, there it is, we already have London. We can go on the general settings, just checking that we have enough IP addresses for the IPsec section, that in this case will be automatically because we are not handling the transit gateways and the routers that we have on Azure. And now we come to the Azure scenario. The underlying network says, I'm gonna connect with, look at the sites, and in this case, I'll be connecting with Tokyo, with AWS, over the public internet, safe. That's it. So just to make sure that everything is working as expected, I'm gonna deploy the platform, everything is ready. So we already have the connectivity part deployed. Just look for that. Over there, we already have the nice green light between those sites, and now we are going to the application part, and remember, 3 steps. First, the tenant. At the tenant, I just have to add the Azure site. It's pretty much the same recipe, guys. This is something that I was looking for this to simplify the procedure. So I just need to choose the account, the same as we did it with AWS. Save. Check with the tenant. Save that. So now we're going to the schema. Go to the schema. Everything is green. Production. And in this case, I just need to add the new site, right? So we are going to the sites. We already have AWS, Miami, San Jose. So we are adding London. Check on the Azure Europe. Choosing the same template that I'm using, stretch network, save. And this is very easy to make in this part because we are reusing pretty much everything. Just to make sure you will be using the same tagging for web, the same BRF, the same everything. So I just want to show that we have the cloud properties, same BRF, same web, pretty much same everything. And now we're going to the site to apply this. So coming to Azure, and now I have to add the region and the networking that I'll be using for the instances, right? So let's go to the BRF. Add the region. In this case, I'll be going to London, so I'll be using the North Europe, right? And add the CIDR with the network addresses that I'll be using for the instances. In this case, I'm using 172.17. I was using 16 for AWS. So a couple subnets, save. We are doing Azure, so VNet peering, right, as expected. The hub network will be the default. And that's it. We're ready. So template is ready, everything is ready. I just need to apply the configuration. So deploy sites. We are going to configure all of this in the Azure platform through the Cloud APIC, APGs, BRF, filters, contracts. I mean, this is a basic template, but actually we can do a lot of things in the template, right? Contracts, permissions, a lot of things we can do. So we already deployed this. We have the green light over there waiting for the checks. Successfully deployed, and now we have to see that it's actually working, right? So now we are moving to Azure, and we are going to create an instance. Windows Server 2019, create a new instance. This is the resource group that we'll be using that is attached to the tenant. The CPUs, the memory, business as usual with Azure. User and password for the VM, next. Disk, next. Networking, the BRF and a subnet to get one of the IP address to assign to the instance. Next. Management, next. Advanced, next. We have to get to the tagging. Look at this. In the tags, the same. I'll say we will be using web to identify that instance and attach it to the EPG that we have on the template. Ready? And now we just need to enable the instance and see the IP address that was assigned for the private address in the interface, right? So let's run this. There you go. Your deployment is complete. Go resources. And this is the IP address that we have for this instance. It's the 104. I'm going to open a PowerShell window to actually be able to check that we have that IP address assigned. Is here. And now I need the IP address for the private instance that we have in AWS. This is the one, 227, as you can remember. I'm going to write it down. And now I can reach, being on Azure, I can get to AWS. Sorry for being that, but same template, same schema, same everything, right? We're just expanding the network that we already created, and this is how we can centralize and automate these kind of configurations. And I hope you saw this is not that complicated. It's just following a couple recipes, and remember, mapping the site in Nexus dashboard, 2 steps for the connectivity, 3 steps for the application, right? Okay, so this is pretty much the use cases that I wanted to show you today. Just remember, for the first part, with the NXOS part, as I said, live is too short for CLI, and actually we want to evolve. So this is the kind of things that we can do with Nexus dashboard. This is the scenario that I was working with for the second part. And as you can see now, I'll be able to add Miami to London, Miami to Tokyo. I just had to add a couple components in the same template, in the same schema, and I'll be able to have a full mesh of connectivity over there. Not available for 45 minutes, but we have all the week in Vegas, right? So what else will we be doing not but working, right? So just to finish this, just remember that we have Nexus dashboard. This is our single pane of glass. We can enable a lot of services with different functionalities. Just let us join you in your ride and work with you guys to see the functionalities that you need and help you with the platform. And just remember to fill in the surveys. I hope you enjoyed the session. I'll be here all the week. I have room for the media engineers. I'll be in the capture the flags. This is important. We have some of these scenarios in the capture the flag in the world of solutions, if you want to try this. And please join the group in the WebEx Teams. And if you want to talk or have a coffee or something else, just let me know and we can find a spot and talk a lot for this, right? And I just wanted to thank you for the time and being here at Cisco Live. And Max Alvarado, it was a great pleasure to have you here today. Thank you.